Hey guys, welcome back to Stuff and Things.
I'm Mia.
And I'm Dan.
And this is not our daily news show, but we will be talking about Canada and why we love living here.
First off, we're going to talk about some of our notable prime ministers, how they shaped Canada and made it what it is today. Our first prime minister, John A. Macdonald, bit of a drunk. He decided to crash a party over in Charlottetown when the maritime provinces were going to make their own country. So he stole their idea, combined Upper and Lower Canada, Quebec and Ontario, and made Canada. Drunk guy did it all. It's wonderful.
Next up on our list is William Lyon Mackenzie King, the crazy guy. One of the longest running prime ministers. His dog died and he had him stuffed. And then he hired psychics to speak with his dead mother and his dead dog. Also, he was a prime minister during World War II, which he did a fairly good job at.
John Diefenbaker, the prime minister that our high school was actually named after, is a bit of either a great guy or a bit of a villain, depending on who you talk to. Great guy because he did enact the Bill of Rights, which set down some fundamental rights for all Canadians that were not part of our original constitution. And if you're talking to military type people, he did cancel the Afro-Aero project, which was a big thing because Canada at that time was at the forefront of aeronautical engineering, and the Avro-Aero program was developing planes that were going faster than anything at the time. So, again, military people that kind of hate him for that, but Bill of Rights. Awesome.
Next up on our list is Pierre Trudeau, one of our most memorable prime ministers. He created embassies before anybody else did in China. He made Canada a real country in 1982 and told the government that the government needs to stay out of the people's bedrooms. Also, he most likely swore in Parliament.
Continuing with our French prime ministers, we got Jean Chrétien, the Liberal leader, served for about 10 years. Most notable for a couple things, like his Red Book of Lies, promises, and having that very distinct accent that, of course, Royal Canadian Armed Forces love to make fun of. He also, of course, served during the time of the big Quebec referendum issues, where we almost lost the province of Quebec. Of course, they might have lost the native territories, but that's a big thing. Don't want to get into that issue. That's bad. Again, pretty good prime minister, served a long time, not a bad guy.
And our current prime minister, Stephen Harper, he's doing okay. He's not doing anything real huge that kind of makes us super angry, but a lot of people hate him. You know, what with the dead eyes and everything. But it's a little too early to tell whether or not he's going to do a lot of good or a lot of bad.
We'll find out in a few years. To change things up a bit, we do want to talk about some of the major cultural/political events that, of course, have shaped Canada to be what it is. Now, the big point of contention happening right now in the States is universal health care. This isn't really a big deal to us Canadians. We have had, in some provinces, universal health care since 1947, and on the federal level, guaranteed in 1961. Now, we're not talking about free health care. This isn't like Americans always saying, free health care. But it's universal. Everyone gets health care as a right. Health care is not a privilege, it's a right of every human. And we in Canada understand that. We've understood that for several decades.
And we say it's not free because it isn't free. The reason why a lot of people think it's free is because we pay it with our taxes, which means we don't actually really need to think about it unless you're in a province like BC where you pay it monthly, which is totally fine. So another fantastic thing in Canada's history, we've had women voting, even partially, since 1850. In Ontario, at least. Full federal level was in 1919, a whole year before the U.S. started allowing their women to vote.
Now, we don't mean to be beating up on the U.S. or anything. I mean, they are our biggest trade partner, our neighbor, our wonderful brother-in-arms and everything. Our cousin in the language that is English.
Also, we're very close to them. We get all of their media, so we hear about all this stuff all the time, and we just feel a little upset about things sometimes when they just don't get it, that people need to have the things that they need to live and be happy.
So again, anything said in this against Americans, we don't really mean. And unfortunately, the next thing up is gay marriage. This is, for some reason, still a point of debate in America, even though, like in other things in this, past provinces, Ontario, first off, gay Ontario, has had gay marriage legalized since 2003, and then it was actually on the federal level in 2005. Now, the actual marriages being legally binding have actually been happening since 1999. And a really cool thing is that the first gay marriages held in churches were actually in the United Church of Canada, which is our biggest Protestant branch of Christianity.
Now we can't go on much further without mentioning a few of our favorite Canadian celebrities, like Jim Carrey.
Oh, Truman Show. So good. Leslie Nielsen, I mean, he's a freaking legend.
And Airplane, come on, classic. John Candy?
Uncle Buck, I mean, great. And of course, Spaceballs. Can't forget that. Mike Myers.
Wayne's World, Party Time, excellent. Michael J. Fox.
Back to the Future. You guys know we're actually living in the future now. Go watch the movie again. Number 2. Of course, some of the most memorable people, I think, the Sutherlands, both Donald and Kiefer.
Kiefer, hello, Jack Bauer in 24, coolest guy ever. And Donald was in the movie based off the TV series MASH, and he was the most hilarious German grandfather in Beerfest. Keanu Reeves.
Whoa, I'm the one. How can you forget Kirk and Scotty, of course. William Shatner and James Doohan.
The best stuff. So cheesy. So excellent.
Having sex with aliens, killing them. And Scotty always somehow getting more than 100% out of any type of equipment on the Enterprise. I don't get it. He always went more than 100%. If you can't go more than 100%, Scotty found out a way.
The Mackenzie brothers, whose real names are Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis.
Hey, get some beers, eh, guys? Let's get some brewskis. Eh? Made a show about eating bacon and drinking beer.
Woo!
What do you need
Bacon
to say?
and beer. How about beer-flavored bacon? Or bacon-flavored beer? We would do it, because that's what we do in Canada.
Dan Aykroyd?
Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Martin Short?
Among some of the other people on the list, SCTV, Father of the Bride, hilarious movies. The amazing comedy group Kids in the Hall.
Who are basically like the Canadian version of Monty Python. So amazing. I squish your head. I squish your head. I'm the chicken lady. Chicken lady. I'm the chicken lady. Christopher Plummer.
The renowned Shakespearean actor from Canada here. And of course, probably my favorite role, and maybe a few of yours' favorite roles, as General Chang in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Cry havoc and let loose the dogs of war! And last but certainly not least, probably the most famous Canadian comedy group, the Royal Canadian Air Farce.
I'm Mike from Canada.
Renowned for doing impressions of every single political figure and prime minister that we've had, really, like Joe Clark and Jean Chrétien.
And now on to something that I don't really care about that much, but apparently a lot of other Canadians do. Sports.
Yeah, we're pretty bad Canadians, considering. First up on the list has to be hockey. Even though it's not our official sport, it's pretty much the unofficial national sport. One of our most renowned figures in Canadian hockey is, of course, Don Cherry, who's been hosting Coach's Corner since 1981. That's a long time. Like, that's longer than we've been alive.
Yep.
That's a long time. And as for the NHL, over to 50% of the players are Canadian. It's a pretty big thing up here. Now, during the 2010 Winter Olympic final games, 80% of Canadians were watching the game. Now, there may only be 34 million of us at this point, but that's still a lot of people. And that's actually kind of short in comparison to back in 1972, the famous game with the USSR, where 83% of the nation was watching. So clearly we're just not as interested in hockey as we used to be. Now, usually on the show we do like to do a bit of back and forth between us, but Mia doesn't really care about sports. So I'm just going to finish off. Canada has actually had our own Canadian Football League since 1958. It's actually the second longest running football league in North America, so it's pretty legit. Right now there's actually 8 teams. I'm playing from BC Lions all the way to Montreal Alouettes. It's actually the second most popular sport with Canada next to ice hockey, because I guess Americans come with that term, and they have to define ice hockey with other hockey. What other hockey is there? Unlike the Stanley Cup games, which are played back and forth between the final teams, the Grey Cup is actually rotated through all teams' hometowns. So it's pretty much fair. Not likely to see any hometown advantages, except for, of course, last year's game where BC won on their home team field. Go BC Lions. Sorry, I really care about CFL, but go BC Lions. As I mentioned before, Winter Olympics is a pretty big deal up here in Canada. It's where we shine on the global stage. Back in 2010, when Vancouver hosted the Winter Olympics, Canada took away the most gold medals. Now, we were third in total medal count, but It's first place that counts, right? Take that, Germany and United States.
We hope to bring you more little special things like this and perhaps start some vlogging in the future. Who knows? And our daily news show will continue as usual on Monday to Thursday, and we'll see you then.